And welcome, everybody, to the Scenic City Sports Podcast, episode 32, if you are keeping track. Rusty, Scott, and Rob joining you on this Wednesday afternoon, and that is the Scenic City Sports Podcast, brought to you by the fine folks at all of our all-star sponsors like Gary Thacker Insurance, the Chattanooga Flower Market, Phil's Primetime Pizza, Choo Choo Barbecue of Chickamauga, and the Payne Mortgage Team. All these folks are the ones that make it possible for us to bring the show to you. Also make it possible for us to take part in things like what the guys took part in last night, and that was the Memorial Stump on Sports All-Star Baseball Game. And we're just going to go ahead and start getting right into some of that. And guys, you guys were out there last night. One of the significant happenings of the game last night is that we gave the first scholarship in honor of the late Stump Martin, and that went to, what was the young man's name, Scott? Hudson Couch
from Ridgeland,
and he got a scholarship in the amount of $555. Now, I know a lot of you people out there are thinking to yourself, why in the world is that the amount? And there is a significant reason behind that, and that is simply this. Stump Martin, in every sport that he ever played, wore the number 55. It was his favorite number. He would talk about that a lot. Even when
still talking about
even in years later when we would be when we would be doing football highlights or something like, who's that number 55 right there? Boy, that number looks good. That color right there.
Yeah, we had to explain 55 on every roster.
Yeah, you had to know who 55 was, but that is the reason behind it.
Just a $55 scholarship. But
that doesn't get you a lot. Nowadays, that's going to get you like a hot dog and a pat on the back. I mean, that's pretty much it. But,
so we decided, we'll throw another 5 on there.
Yeah, but and that's the other thing too that we wanted to throw out there, that we're going to do everything we can to keep his memory alive that we can, and the family. I think the guys just said Misty was at the game last night, so glad to see.
Misty was in attendance.
Glad to see that's still going on.
Scott, we recognized that young man before the ball game. All the teams were lined up, and I had a chance to chat with his dad during the game, and he said he had no idea. I said, really, with all our poor individuals that can leak information, you had no idea. He said no, and he was very appreciative of what we did. And
there's only 5 people that knew about it, and we hadn't told anybody.
Well, we could.
Harden didn't even know.
Well, we do have some moles in here sometimes that leak stuff, not meaning, but they do. And they were surprised. We saw it on their faces. Glad to be about that last night, and also Team Georgia getting a win, Scott, which is rare in that series.
Yeah, it's now 16-4.
That's how rare it is.
This is the 20th anniversary of the game, even though it started in 2002. We didn't have a game in 2020, obviously, because of COVID. Didn't have one last year, and people were asking, why didn't we have a game last year? Was it weather? We just couldn't get enough guys to commit to it?
I thought we couldn't get enough. I thought we couldn't get enough money. I thought we couldn't get enough guys to commit to it was part of it, and then the other part is that I think the weather, when they could get people to practice and stuff, the weather was to a point where they just never could put anything together, and I think that's the reason that we wound up not doing it.
And then last night we had a couple of kids that were there that weren't on the original roster. I guess some late-minute additions. We had some kids that were supposed to have been there that weren't there last night, so they kind of shuffled a couple of kids in. But
something interesting about that game, and I turned to Scott and I said, Scott, I don't recall that ever happening. Leadoff hitter, goes yard,
home run,
and I don't recall that. Now it may have happened before, but I don't recall that.
I don't think it's happened either. But Tennessee got out to a 1-0 lead on the Brett Rogers homer. Georgia comes in and puts up 4. I think 2 of them scored on an error, but they were hitting the ball hard. And then it was 4-1 for a while. Tennessee comes back in. I believe Parker Minix from Walker Valley got a 2-run single to make it 4-3. Threatening for more in the 5th, had bases loaded, and Brody Jenner from Gordon Lee playing third base, and I can't remember whose bat hit a rifle shot down the third base line, and Brody was able to snag it. It was on him in a
Good thing he caught it.
Set. Yeah, it would have done some damage had he not. But he was able to catch it. He sprinted back to the bag, double up the runner for 2 outs, and then after a walk, reloaded the bases. Another tough grounder, and if you've never played on a turf field, those balls they come at you quick.
But I am so proud.
They take kind of true hops, but I mean
it moves.
Yeah, they're moving, and he was able to snag it and tag third for the out. And then Georgia comes in and gets 3 runs, quick runs right on the board. They score and kept adding to their lead down the stretch. 12 to 3.
Again, you just heard it. 4th victory in 20 years of this.
But 3rd time in the last 7 meetings, Georgia's won. So it's starting to even out.
And there was some times, going back in history, there was some times that Georgia possibly had a better roster and didn't win the game.
Yeah.
And there was also some times that was so crucial for a couple of Georgia schools to let their kids participate, and they did not. And that was such a deficit to that Georgia roster by them not playing.
We've had some kids that we hoped we were playing the game that didn't. That it probably made a difference. But last night, Georgia had 3 Division I signees, and those kids, if I remember right what I wrote from the story, Zach Lyles from Sonoraville, it's going to Western Kentucky. Ross Norman from Ringgold, it's going to Georgia State. And then a late addition, Tyler Nieces from Dalton, who's signed with Georgia Tech. Those 3 kids had a combined 6 hits, 2 homers, 7 runs scored, and 9 RBIs.
Big contributors on the night, weren't they?
Nieces went on to win he won the home run derby to start the night. And he went 2 for 2 with 3 RBIs. He was your Georgia player of the game. Ross Norman turned in a really good performance. He didn't pitch last night, but he went 3 for 5 with 4 RBIs. Was the overall MVP. And a kid that we were really impressed by, got the Tennessee player of the game, Colby Elwood from Whitwell. This kid went out there, had a double at the plate, and he was the only pitcher from Tennessee, and I think they threw 6 of them out there last night. He was the only pitcher not to give up any hits, didn't give up any runs. He walked 1 batter, struck out 4 in his 2 innings, and he threw the ball by some really good hitters.
Heaviest contribution of teams out there, I think Silverdale had 5 or 6, and I think Ringo had maybe 4.
I think Ringo had
4, maybe
5.
Okay, so
4 or 5.
Those were your 2 biggest schools in their contribution to the team.
Yeah.
But what I did notice, missing no Blue Tornado, no Red Raider, no Bears from Bradley County. Again, some schools that
have been regular contributors to those games.
Those teams.
That got me. It was funny, how we sit here and we kind of do a lot of things thinking on the fly. And while you guys were talking, in the back of my mind, I was just sitting here thinking to myself, if we were to put together an all-time all-star, they have to have played in the game. Have to have played in the game. But an all-time all-star roster for that baseball team from Tennessee and Georgia.
Be hard.
I mean,
be really hard.
But you're talking about some very good.
Yeah. Be hard, and most of the kids, I guess, Scott, I think we can be safe in saying this. Most of the kids that play in those games go on to play college ball at some level, and have different varieties of success. I mean, I saw where you put in an article. I mean, Dakota Hudson, who's still pitching in the bigs.
I was about to ask if you've read that or not, but Dakota Hudson, Cardinals pitcher,
which I think he was the MVP.
He was the MVP in 2013, and I remember going back to like the first couple games. Guys like Adam Howard from Ottawa, Will Hodges, played in that game. And
what about what's the kid from? Went to Carson Newman from. I think he was at Boyd Buchanan. Oh, I can't. God, like.
I wish I had all the rosters. Somebody was asking me if I had all the rosters.
Mama's name was Donna, and his daddy's name was Bill. I think it was Bryce. Gosh.
Yeah. You're not talking about the young man that was so good from CCS a few years ago.
No.
He's in the minors.
No, now. Bryce is going. This kid. We're going all the way back to, golly, like 2000. 2002, 2003. But I remember him.
I'm trying to remember the file I've got at home. I've got it typed up. I can see his first name. I can't see his last name.
What I remember about some of the kids that really, really could have played, I think more about Team Georgia and who they didn't have playing at times that would have made tremendous differences, because they might have been involved in East Cobb or somebody, and they would be 2 hours away on that night and just not be possible.
Is it Reynolds? Bryce Reynolds?
Well, Bryce Reynolds played for Gordon Lee.
Nah, that's not him. Man. That's a different. I was looking on Facebook to see if I could.
Wasn't there another kid named Bryce Reynolds also? But I don't know if that was him or not.
What Rusty just said would be interesting to put together.
You know exactly who I'm talking about.
But I think you might start getting into, if you were going to get into tiebreakers on kids that what did that kid maybe go on and do in college? What did that kid maybe go on to do in minor league ball? Or now, of course, you have Dakota Hudson throwing in the majors. Is that the only one, Scott, that's made it to that point? I think, yay. I don't think Kyler...
did Mitchell Boggs play in the game?
No.
I was going to say, I know he made it.
And I don't think...
And I know Culberson didn't.
I don't think...
Didn't Hodges make it to the show eventually?
Yeah. Culberson did play in that game.
Did Charlie play in the game?
Yes, he did.
Not in the senior All-Star game. He played in the
futures. Yeah, he played in the futures one.
He did not play in the senior All-Star game, but he did play in that junior futures game that we used to have for that first year or two until the state of Georgia said, hey, you can't do that, but...
And
we're not getting any money out of it.
This is going to sound a little bit biased, but the year, I think that would have been the graduating class of 07, you had two important players that were not on Team Georgia because they were on Team Tennessee, one being my son and the other being Alex Napier.
Yeah.
Now, Team Georgia already had a really, really good roster, thanks to several Gordon Lee kids back then. But then again, you had two of that would have been in part of that on Team Tennessee. And
Georgia didn't win until 2009. That was their first victory.
Okay.
3-2 over at AT&T Field.
And we played that 5 or 6 times there, didn't we?
Yeah, we've played. That last night was the 6th time we've been at Ridgeland, and we've been at Bell South / AT&T 5 or 6 times. We were at Engle for the first, the second and third game. We played over there. Ottawa, I think, has hosted it twice. Lookout Valley once, and McCallie once. So it's moved around from place to place.
Yeah, and we have other great environments that could have hosted it, but some of the places that you mentioned were always reaching out and asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, willing to be.
But I think all the kids had a great time last night. The parents and everybody seemed to have a great time, and I want to say this. That was the first time I'd gotten to see the new turf down, and I've been preaching this for a long time before they got it. How desperately they needed it, how badly they needed it, particularly when you're trying to get on a field in February and it just not being realistic. Yeah. And how a disadvantage Ridgeland had from a standpoint of never seeing the field until they started their season.
Yep.
Because that field would not dry up.
There were years where they went to South Georgia to play a couple of games to start the season, and that was all they could get in before region play started because of the rain.
And that's tragically bad too.
Well, I mean, you think about it. I mean, it was only going to. It's been inevitable. I mean, Lord, they had to put. Eventually, they had to put turf down on the football field because the football field was so terrible. I mean, we all remember going to that game. I mean, we talked about it with Coach Aiken a few weeks ago.
I do not know
that week when they were knee deep in water.
Well, I don't know what water problems are over there that have caused both of their fields.
It's like the way it drains down off that.
Be so bad.
It's like the way it drains down off that hill or something. It just don't. It just don't. The dirt don't perk right or something. I mean, it's just weird.
One I think
it took a tennis shoe off my foot one time.
I know.
Mud.
And here's one I used to think about that needed it the most, possibly needed it the most in Tennessee, and they finally have it. And that's Boyd Buchanan.
Mm-hmm.
They were in a similar situation.
Stump used to colloquially call it the swamp.
Well,
I mean, and those
even their great teams and their success they were having over there, they were playing on probably the worst field in town.
You think about some of those late summer, early fall, early season games, and you go over there, and it's feels like 105 degrees out there, and the damn mosquitoes would carry you off because of how much moisture was in the air.
Well, they put that off a long time, and they finally did it, and they desperately needed.
Well, I thought about something yesterday when I watched a little bit of the All-Star game last night.
Just let you know, we do have a guest confirmed for next Wednesday.
Okay. So I was thinking about something last night, and
we'll make that announcement just yet.
Yeah. So I was watching a little bit of the All-Star game watched a little bit of the Home Run Derby on Monday night, and it kind of got me thinking, of all the major sports leagues, which leagues' mid-season All-Star festivities
are the best.
Now, the NFL, it doesn't count because they don't play theirs till the end of the season because and they don't do what they used to do. Scott and I, and you do too, Rob, remember a day when they would do everything in Honolulu, and they would do the big skills competition where the quarterbacks would come out there just wearing their shorts and their jerseys, and they would do all the moving target throws, and then they would do, I remember, who can forget Larry Allen sitting down on the daggum bench for the Cowboys and pumping, 250 like 23 times in a minute. The stuff like that, but who has the best?
Oh, it's baseball. They all watered themselves down from the intent of the intensity of the game. Mm-hmm. Okay? The NBA one, we're serious the last 3 minutes of the fourth quarter.
Well, yeah.
I mean, all of a sudden, we're going to play like that.
Yeah.
That game is just, that game's is almost not fun to watch either.
Oh no, and they've tried everything they could to dress it up. That what is it? Us Against the World, Team LeBron, Team Melo.
They've done everything.
They're talking about going back to East versus West and stuff now, but
football needed to quit what they were doing.
Baseball was great for years before they got to interleague play. Now, I'm okay with interleague play, but it does take away from
it dilutes it a little bit because people don't see each other.
But I think they do the best job because those players actually play defense, and they try and care.
The game is still being tried.
You have to play defense to play the game. I mean,
stand there and let one drop.
No, you can't. You can't let one drop in.
Hockey, and they've done so much stuff with hockey, and they 3-on-3s and stuff like that. And
because of the physicality of that game, is it laid back?
Oh,
it's
a lot.
There's no hits. It's basically 3-on-3 like they.
No, the skills competition is fun to watch in hockey. I like when they do the goal, the sniper and thing, where they hang the plates in the goal. That one's kind of cool. I like watching that. But I agree with y'all.
The football one had to go away.
It did.
Based on what y'all were letting that turn
Yes. But I agree with y'all wholeheartedly. I think baseball, I mean, my wife, who never watches baseball hardly at all, sat there with me on Monday night, and we watched that entire home run derby.
I heard a guy...
all 300 and some odd home runs that was hit in the night.
I heard a guy on ESPN talk about the difference on the home run derby of yesteryear and now. He said, I thought he summed it up decently. He said it originally was a power event, and now it is an endurance event.
Yeah, I don't like the way that
it is a sorts of it.
Go back to the 10 hours.
God,
I mean, don't put a clock on it.
No, this clock thing, dude.
Doesn't need a clock. I'm not getting into that.
Poor old Vlad Guerrero Jr. at one point just stopped. He's like, I gotta stop for a minute. Yeah. I mean, his arms were about to fall off.
Some of them don't want to do it because they're fear of getting hurt under this element.
Well,
exactly.
I'll tell you one thing: the cat that won it. His name escapes me right now.
Vlad Guerrero Jr.
It wasn't him. No, the one the one. Let's see, they were in Seattle. So the kid from Seattle, Julio Rodriguez.
Yeah.
His BP pitcher looked like he was throwing darts. He wasn't even taking a full. I mean, he was just bink. I mean, it looked like me and Scott back in the day throwing Little League ball. But he was putting them in the exact same spot every time, just one right after the other, and that dude was just tattooing them.
That's a huge part of this thing, okay? And then I think you noticed that when the Mets guy stepped in there, he was defeated.
Oh, yeah.
He thought, I can't.
Well, he didn't have his regular guy either. They had told that his regular BP pitcher wasn't with him.
You saw it on his face.
Mm-hmm.
41. I ain't going to do this.
And look, the kid didn't win, but one of the funnest moments of that whole night was watching the kid from the Orioles.
Yeah.
You know, in his last 30 seconds, flips around and starts hitting from the right side and just tattooing them one right after the other. And his daddy was the one out there throwing BP to him.
And put up a great number.
Oh, he put 27 up.
Somebody come right behind
Josh
him and just made it
Hamilton's
go away.
Josh Hamilton's dad threw to him, too, back in the day.
Here's what I would do. One little tweak. And
so did Robinson Cano's dad threw to him as well.
And I understand people are there to see home runs, but who can't hit them out with batting practice pitches? Get me a pitching machine up there. Get me a pitching machine up there that's going to throw it about 90, 95. Then let's see how many home runs you can hit.
If you gave those guys 90-mile-an-hour dead red right across the middle and you give them 10 outs, I still think you'd have some guys that would hit. I still think you'd have guys touching 25, 30.
I do
but
too.
I think it'd just be a little more of an element.
It would be a lot more.
I'm going to lob one in here at 65 and see what
I
you
agreed
do.
with what I heard the guy on the radio say, that it's kind of gone away from a power event and it's turned into a
endurance thing.
It is.
And you catch a break when somebody's run out of gas.
Oh, yeah.
And you beat them with bad numbers. Now you've held on to the finals.
That's why I say go back to, you go till you get 10 outs, and then I think it should carry over. Don't erase the scores. I think it should carry over. And if you want to take it down to the final 4 after the first round, then down to the final 2. But 10 outs, put them on about a 90-mile-per-hour pitching machine.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I mean, you got to catch.
It's going to go faster.
There and,
you're not going to be up there sweating for 20 minutes at the plate, hitting home run after home run, because that will tire you.
Well, they were talking, of course, when they're trying to fill some time here and there, they inevitably they will start talking about some of the older home run derbies and who what were some of the best performances of all time, and I think back to the year that it was in Tiger Stadium, and Big Cecil hit one off the roof. You got the year that it was in Camden Yards. Everybody talks about Griffey hitting the warehouse, but what everybody don't talk about was Juan Gonzalez hitting from the right side of the plate, who went on to be the eventual winner that year, was hitting balls that would have flown out of there with some to spare. I mean, he was hitting moonshots.
There's a plaque at Camden Yards out there where Griffey
hit the warehouse.
And if you notice also, Truist Park has found its way back into the Final Four, so to speak, of 2025, which was taken away from them in a poor taste anyway. But part of getting a new park is you're going to host an All-Star event. And although it looked like it was a festive event down there, I think Atlanta would be a tremendous, particularly at Truist. I think that would be a tremendous event, and they would. If you don't get a ticket very, very early, you ain't getting in there.
Yeah. You think about the whole 2 to 3 day festivities.
It'd be super, and they would be good at it.
Those bars in the Battery. If I owned one of those bars, I'm telling y'all right now, if it was legal for me to do it, I believe I'd open the door on that first day and I wouldn't close it till the last person walked out of there 3 days later. I'd sit down with my staff and be like, look, I'll pay you extra. Whatever we got to do, we are not closing. We will pour as long as somebody is in here wanting.
Yep. Oh, they'd be there.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I don't think you wouldn't go. You wouldn't go. I don't think you'd go any time at all that there wouldn't be somebody in there.
So you think it'd be similar to New Orleans on Mardi Gras? Huh?
Oh, just
absolutely.
I've done friggin' New Orleans on a Tuesday.
To go back to all the other All-Star games and stuff, and what can we do to make them better? I don't think we were headed that direction, but I'm down with this out there, and I've said it for years. If you want to make the All-Star games better, football, basketball, hockey, even baseball, you only got to do one thing. You ready for this?
We're in suspense.
Sure.
Each player that's in the game got to put up $100,000 of their own money. Winner take all.
But you couldn't do that
I mean, you can't.
Well,
that's gambling.
No. Oh, no. I'm not. That part.
These athletes hate to lose $10 to each other in a card game.
That part to me is. I mean, I could care less about that.
Creates that. I don't Pete Rose effect where you run over the catcher.
I don't think you could.
It creates that, but these guys do not want to lose their own.
No, they definitely don't. I don't think you could do that though, because I think, especially if you get one of those, you get one of the all-star rookies or something coming in there. That's only 1 or 2 years into the career, $100,000 for them.
Yeah, big difference.
But I agree. 25, 50.
It doesn't matter. You can make it $100.
Yeah.
Those guys are super competitive when it comes to not having to pay out money to somebody else in a competition.
Don't worry about it, man. Give it about 7 or 10 more years, and when the Saudis come in and buy Major League Baseball, that's probably what they'll put. $1 billion up to the winning side.
A lot of these people have all-star clauses in their contract, make them put up that money.
Yeah, We're also uniform snobs. You could not have picked out any worse uniforms than what I saw last night.
Oh, they were terrible.
And how that gets past an approval on a committee.
The national ones? They were terrible.
To say, I think that really does look good.
The tops and the bottoms are different colors.
Yeah.
What?
It's gray and slightly darker gray.
That was a waste of money.
It's gray and charcoal.
It reminds me, there was a David Letterman list. It was top 10 signs you've chosen a bad college, and one of them was the school colors are brown and slightly darker brown.
Well, it just makes me think of the line in Steel Magnolias. My colors are pink, or are blush and bashful. Your colors are pink and pink. I mean,
bring back.
They were terrible.
Let them wear their own jerseys.
Yes. I got no problem with that. White
gray and white.
Well, they only have started this unified jersey thing the last it's been going on now for about 7 or 8 years. It ain't been going on long.
But I think there's enough backlash from this one that they.
Look, man, Greg Payne.
I hope there is, because that was
terrible.
Terrible.
Greg Payne said it. I think one of the times we were talking about baseball, and he said, I always looked forward to the All-Star game because I got to see people from teams that I never got to see.
Yeah.
And I got to see them. Yeah. I like uniforms. I got to see their uniforms.
Yep.
And I mean, you think about it. Nowadays, everybody either does. The gray away unis and the white home unis. So I mean, it's uniform. Yeah. So I mean, you've got that.
You got that.
If you're too damn dumb, you can't figure out who's on your team. I mean, maybe baseball's not your sport, but I mean, but look, y'all know as well as I do, they're not going to change that. Why are they not going to change it? Because that's another way for them to sell you a $149.99 Nike jersey with Ronald Acuna's name on the back.
They missed an opportunity.
Does the audience have $149? Because they just said that they were bidding on it.
You can tell the audience over there is one of us, because when we started talking about uniforms, you didn't hear us say, "Did you see they're bringing back the creamsicle uniforms in Tampa Bay?" So.
They missed an opportunity.
And the Oilers.
Because the first Major League Baseball All-Star, I thought it was 1934. It was 1933. Last night they could have had the 70th anniversary All-Star game, and they could have all wore
throwbacks. Oh man, like the big sacky wool.
Well, not necessarily like that, but just the old logos, the old style. And if you're the Mariners, either bring back like the Pilots,
the Seattle Pilots,
or the old expansion.
Well, the Astros could have been the Colt 45s.
And if you got the people out there that could put those crappy uniforms together, they could have come up with Scott's idea and sold that together.
It gets back to every time Major League Baseball has tried to do something unique.
I didn't even like the American League's uniform.
Right.
They wouldn't do nothing for me either.
But every time the MLB has tried to do something unique like that, it always falls on its face. I mean, do y'all remember the futuristic jerseys they wore that one season in the 90s with the damn vest?
Turn ahead the clock.
Yeah, turn ahead the clock. I mean,
it's a traditional sport.
It is.
And that's why when you run as far away from it as possible,
you don't. I mean, I'm sorry, but there is not a bad uniform in MLB. I mean, the base white and the base gray for every team in Major League Baseball is a good looking uniform. Now, we can split hairs on some of their alternates. I wasn't crazy about the camouflage Padres jersey a few years ago. No. I get what was behind it, and I appreciate that. Yeah, I wasn't crazy about that. But, if I'm being real honest, I'm not crazy about the vest look with the sleeves underneath. I like when the Braves did a few years ago when the Braves had that all-red jersey they wore on Sundays. I liked that one.
And now they're wearing those on...
They just wear them once in a blue moon now.
No, they wear them on Fridays at home.
Yeah, and I liked the cream color one they wore a few years ago. That was the throwback to the Milwaukee Braves.
And the uniform that each team had to come up with associated
the
with
City one.
City Connect.
Well, yeah.
What has the Yankees done with their City Connect?
They haven't.
They haven't put one out yet.
I didn't see one yet.
It's up to the team when they bring it out. They can bring it out any time during the year, and they haven't done theirs yet.
There's been some bad ones
Bronx,
in that.
They'll have something with Bronx.
I didn't honestly.
Those Cincinnati Reds ones, black on black with red, are disastrous.
I think Atlanta missed an opportunity with theirs. I don't like.
They went back to Hank Aaron's days.
Well, but they wear that jersey anyways. Doing that, the ATL or whatever thing they did on there,
I didn't wearing that uniform.
I didn't care for it. I tell you the one that I like that I kind of wish that they would have used as theirs. On Outcast Bobblehead Night, a lot of the people in the crowd had the Atlians jersey that Outcast would wear. And everybody in Atlanta knows what that is. That is a true City Connect at that point. If you're only going to wear them 2 or 3 times throughout the season, that would have been a good way to go for Atlanta because you could have paid tribute to one of your best entertainers of the city as well. You could have done something like that. There was ways to go.
Some of my all-time, I am a uniform buff.
Oh Lord, yeah.
If Stump was sitting here, he'd have his list too. Some of my all-time favorites, and I can even go back into the year or two that I really appreciated that uniform. Early 70s Oakland A's with the gold.
Oh yeah,
that was a vest.
Yeah.
Well, but then the gold.
Yeah,
that uniform sparkled.
Yeah.
Early 70s, late 60s. Pirates used it as a throwback uniform. Some
flat bill.
Those pillbox hat ones.
The Pirates, the one that Roberto Clemente played in, which was kind of a
the yellow with black.
A yellow, mustard yellow.
Yep.
I love that uniform in that era. And then again, the white on white home uniform for the Cardinals has always been one of my traditional likes.
I have always liked,
and I don't dislike the Braves uniform.
I kid around and call it the doo-doo brown and mustard yellow, but the early '80s Padres, the Steve Garvey Padres,
they've jumped around. They've been everywhere on their colors.
I liked that jersey. I liked those around that same era. The Milwaukee Brewers had a nice looking uni with that bright yellow and the blue. I've always thought. To me, and I don't know why I like it so much, but I think one of the classiest looking jerseys in all of baseball is and always will be the white home uni that the Kansas City Royals wear.
Yeah, that's good.
That logo and that gold crown just pops. But you're exactly right. That Kansas or that St. Louis Cardinals with them two big old pretty Redbirds on either end of that bat. I mean,
and I'm not so crazy about the grays like most people aren't, but they're home whites. They've not gotten far away from what it.
But look at how many teams in Major League Baseball that have never really done anything crazy. The Yankees have always worn
don't even have
pinstripes. Red Sox.
They're putting advertisement on their jerseys over there.
Yeah.
I just saw that.
God, it's killing them to do that.
First time ever.
But they ain't going to miss out on that money.
They ain't
going to miss out on that money. The Braves is a Quick Creek. Now, they got...
it sticks out like a sore thumb.
Oh, of course it does. And they put it on
the Reds?
Oh, Lord. What is... I don't know. What is the Reds?
Rovers.
Is it? Oh, that doesn't fit at all.
And I'm going to bring this back.
Pretty good penny gets paid.
Circle around to Rob Manfred, because I'm going to find fault in him for anything.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. But here's
there's plenty of fault to be found.
If you want to market your sport and you want to market the superstars in your sport, the Shohei Ohtanis and the Mike Trouts and the Pete Alonsos and the Ronald Acuna Jr.'s and all these big name guys, and you want to market that to the younger generation, then why don't you let them wear their individual uniforms so we know what team they play for?
Yeah.
If it kind of says national, I don't know what team that guy plays for. I don't get to watch the Minnesota Twins or the Seattle Mariners on a daily basis. I don't know. But if I see a Seattle Mariners jersey,
Scott, I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
I don't see why. I don't want to see American and National.
They missed an opportunity as they normally do.
It goes back to this. You're as big a Tennessee Titans fan as I know. If you've got your choice in, let's just say 2 years ago when Derrick Henry was the baddest man walking, you got your choice of wearing Derrick Henry's Titans jersey or wearing Derrick Henry's Pro Bowl jersey. You ain't buying his Pro Bowl jersey. Nope. You're just not doing it. Nope. And I know you sure as hell ain't buying his Alabama jersey. But, you know.
Don't speak of that.
Exactly. Those who will not be named. But, to me.
How about his Jacksonville High School?
Oh, no,
You mean Yulee, Florida?
Yeah, Yulee, Florida.
I'd wear that.
I'd wear him at Smith's Escambia High School jersey. I wouldn't, I ain't wearing that Florida one. But that's where you get into. What are they recognized with? What are the kids? Now, the kids, though, on the other hand, we also have to remember that we're old dudes. The kids like some of that crazier stuff. I mean, this is a generation that doesn't necessarily have the loyalty to specified programs the way we all did. Now, there are some exceptions to that rule. One of them's in this room with us, but they have their teams, but the majority of them, they cheer for players. They don't cheer for teams anymore.
Well, there you go. So,
But again, market to the player.
If you're also, by the way, I don't know if you heard this just through the first half, and this may not change of the baseball season. Whose jersey is leading the way in sales nationally?
I think Cunha's one and Ohtani's two.
Cunha's one, Ohtani's two.
You think they trade him?
I listen to Fox and I listen to A-Rod and Jeter and Big Papi talk about that, and I really thought they said some things that made sense. And I'm gonna repeat A-Rod because I thought he was clearer than the other two on what he said. They all talked about the fact that it's a difficult decision.
Mm-hmm.
They all talked about the fact we don't know for sure can the Angels re-sign him or not.
Yeah.
But what A-Rod said is this: Ohtani and Trout both go, but they don't go for nothing.
Oh, no.
I need 7 or 8 ball players back. He says they can't win with 2 anyway.
Yeah.
They can't win with 2 ball players anyway.
And there ain't but a handful of teams in the league that can make that trade. And he also said this: if
they are around next year, you got $1 billion
in those 2 guys.
Kids. 2 ball players, and you don't have a
team. Did you hear Pedro Martinez looked over at David Ortiz and he said, "Papi," talking about Ohtani, and he said, "Papi, they're paying for me and you together in one guy." Yeah.
This would be the Herschel Walker trade of the
MLB.
They got to be smart. Yeah. They got to get something in return. Now I'll tell you,
you can't let them go for nothing.
Okay, and
you got maybe 3 teams that would have the assets to make that trade.
Well, here's.
Braves, Dodgers, Yankees.
Braves won't do it.
But
I know that.
I can see the Dodgers, Scott, giving up something to get those 2 to ride in the second half and win a World Series, and maybe have the money to buy one of them back next year.
Yeah, I can see the Dodgers doing it, and that's about it. Because here's the way I'm looking at it: if you're going to trade and you're going to rent this guy basically for 3 months, there's no guarantee you're going to re-sign. You're going to sign with you. If you're going to basically rent this guy for 2.5-3 months, you got to be a contender right now, right?
You got to be a contender.
Okay. You're going to mess up that team chemistry, and you're going to give away 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 established players and starters, plus mess up your farm system for a guy that you're only going to use for 3 months and then probably not going to re-sign him.
I think you do roll that dice when you're somebody like the Dodgers that says, okay, we get a World Series out of this. We get that. You
could, but is it worth sacrificing next 5 to 6 years of your franchise?
I think they turn around and they say, okay, well, we'll bid for one of them high enough that we'll get one of them. We may not get both of them because we probably don't have the funds to get both of them, but we'll get one of them and we'll move on. But I think when you have an opportunity to win a World Series and you let it slip by as if you're going to do it again next year,
Yeah.
you're foolishly thinking.
Well, or do you turn around and say, look, we're not going to trade for him. We like what we've got. But at the end of the season, we're going to sign him. We're going to add to it, and we don't have to lose anybody.
Well, but
I don't know.
But the Angels aren't going to give those two up for not a whole house full of coming back.
If they can't get something good in a trade, they're going to hang on to it.
So I liked what A-Rod said. He said, you can't win with two. You've proven that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You don't even know if you have the ability to latch on and keep Ohtani anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You need 8-9 ball players. This is your opportunity to trade two for as many as you can get.
Well, and you, if they were...
And the Dodgers are Braves won't do it.
No.
Yankees probably
no.
wouldn't. It's the Dodgers that will do it.
Dodgers about the only one right now, unless the Cubs are just sitting back. But I don't think they'll do it either.
But y'all, there's teams out there.
The Mets might.
The Mets could do it.
There are teams out there that might pony up big for him,
but they're out of it, Scott.
Even ones that are out of it might pony up for him because of the amount of money that he would make them in the second half of the year.
True.
I mean, if you're if you are the friggin' Milwaukee Brewers or somebody like that's not close to the top, you rent this guy for 3 months, and you make
the NL Central except for
St. Louis you make a couple.
And they talked about the Braves are not hurting for those seats already.
No, the Braves don't need him,
so they wouldn't do it.
No,
I'll tell you somebody that.
The Braves will wind up picking back up like somebody like Soler for another bat.
Solaire's in their thought process.
I don't know if they re-sign him, but the Reds would be an interesting landing spot.
It'd be an interesting landing spot. I don't know if they got the ability.
They ain't got the money to sign him.
No. And I'll bring this up, and I don't know.
There's literally 5 teams in the league that could afford him.
I've thrown this out there before. Shohei Ohtani is best player in baseball. He just is. With the combination stuff.
Combination.
Yeah.
And everybody's talking about.
But do you realize if he got Tommy John, just what if you went from spending $500 million for a two-way player, you ain't got
nothing.
Yeah. I mean, obviously,
not only have you lost your best pitcher, or your best hitter, but you've lost a good quality pitcher.
And that can happen with anybody.
Because he's not a Cy Young pitcher, but he's a solid starter.
He might be this year. He's a 1 and 2 according to whose team he falls on. If he went to the Dodgers, he probably wouldn't be their ace, but he'd be right there.
Well, I'm hearing $555 million, $600 million contract that's going to take to sign this guy, and maybe that's not even enough. But I want to throw this out there. He's not an American player. And I'm not saying that as a negative. I'm saying he doesn't have the same mentality coming from Japan as an American player would. Is he the kind of player that's going to say, no, I want all the money I can possibly get? Or is it kind of in his culture from Japan to say, I don't need all this money.
I want to be on the best team.
I want to be on the best team, and I'll be willing to take less money. Or is he the kind of guy that's,
Well, here's
but he's
has
not
he been around enough American players now to say, hey, you got to give him money?
Who's his counsel?
See, you're thinking the same thing. The first thought I had is who's his agent?
That's the guy running.
Because I'm going to tell you right now, if his agent is Scott Boras,
if he's running the ship,
it's over.
We ain't talking about.
But if it's not, and if it's maybe a Japanese agent or something like that, and they haven't played that game in America before,
I understand.
I just wonder if, with the culture,
you could say the same thing about Acuna. Who's his agent?
His is Scott Boras, I think.
Yeah,
I don't know. Is it?
I don't know.
I mean, the guy's getting paid $10 million right now, and he's going to be an MVP.
Well, the Dominican Caribbean players, I mean, they're used to getting these big contracts and stuff like that too. But we've never really seen that with a Japanese player before.
My thing with
that's why I'm kind of, because I don't remember Ichiro breaking the bank.
Those last couple
Hideo Nomo, I don't remember.
Couple of those contracts that Ichiro signed towards the end were pretty substantial.
I'm just wondering about the culture differences between Japanese baseball and American baseball players.
Well, it's a valid question. But it's who's that boy's age.
I still think he's going to get a boatload of money.
And there's 5 teams out there, and Braves not being one of them.
If you think Bobby Bonilla Day is something, I mean, seriously, you think about it. The amount of money.
Have you seen the Mookie Betts deal?
That's what I'm getting at. But imagine
he did the same thing.
If you're another team going after Ohtani, and that guy's got representation that's as smart as I would hope that he does have. I'm gonna tell you something. If I was his agent, I'd walk in there and be like, all right, here's what we're going to do.
I saw this the other day.
I'll sign right now for $300 million. You know, because they're estimating 550, 600.
Well, they're pushing that out over 10 years, too.
Fine. I'll sign right now.
28?
Yeah, but every one of those 10-year contracts, Scott, are bad at the end.
But think about it like this. I'll take $300 right now over 10 years. But on day one of year 11, I'm going to still make.
You want the other difference?
I'm still going to make the other $300 million that I should have been paid in that contract when I can't play a lick. Or you can just say, or we can defer it out to where till the day I die.
I don't know if you saw.
I make $7 or $8 million a year.
We know how much the Mets guys got involved in. He's got $84 million tied up into older pitchers that did a wonderful job in their career, but they're not who they once were. Okay, so he's kind of overpaid. They got $50 million on the books still of players that aren't playing. Now, Bobby Bonilla's at $1.4 million. They still have to pay Cano $25 million a year.
God.
Remember he left the Yankees? He got that crazy contract. Then they got rid of him.
Well,
they still owe him.
Yeah.
Shohei Ohtani just turned 29. That throws a wrench into that 10-year deal.
It does, but then you got somebody like Morton who's 39 and still pitching well for.
You got Pujols that played out. Pujols played out that 10-year deal in Los Angeles and still.
Quick question: do you know who the fourth highest paid player on the Reds?
It's Ken Griffey Jr.
It's Ken Griffey Jr.
Yeah, I saw the list the other day. He's still making 4.3, something like that.
Those guys got some giving some good advice. They did. Yeah. They really did, because and I know you get all that money up front, and that you're young and you're just spending it like you don't know where it's coming from. So those guys got some good advice to get those kind of deals. They ain't playing no more, and they're still receiving nice paychecks.
See, I think that's the kind of stuff. I think moving forward that's the kind of stuff that you're going to see more of, because I think that
it would be a good idea.
I think this generation of player has grown up watching ESPN, and they've seen the 30 for 30s about all the guys that are basically broke by the time they're 35 years old. And I think all those kids are like, you know what? No matter what I do, that's not going to be me.
Yeah, here it is. Yeah, when Mookie Betts signed, this was 2020, 12-year, $365 million contract, included a $65 million signing bonus, which was the biggest at the time. But he said Betts will receive payments over 24 years, not 12. $115 million in deferred money. $8 million deferred from his base salary in each of the extension's first 5 years. The deferrals jump to $10 million of each of the next 2 seasons and $11 million over each of the final 5 seasons through 2032.
He's going to be patting himself on the back when he's out of there.
And the Betts will receive the deferred money in annual installments every July 1st in the 12 years after the deal expires, from 2033 to 2044, when Betts will celebrate his 52nd birthday.
And see that also helps the club out too.
Yes.
During that era that they're not really giving that money out. Now they're probably complaining afterwards. But
that money's not counting against your salary cap or anything.
That's right.
So you've taken care of one of your guys. You're not, and that's the other thing too is, people sit here and they'll be like, oh my God, I can't believe they're paying one guy and blah 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 blah. Boys and girls, let's talk about what the actual money of Major League Baseball is. Let's talk about how much money in ticket revenue that the Los Angeles Dodgers make in any given season. Let's talk about how much money that the Los Angeles Dodgers make in beer sales in any given season, in hot dog sales in any given season, hats, jerseys, all the things that they sell with that LA logo on it.
You're in the food.
Yep, but you're in the billions.
I do enjoy
Dodger.
Yeah. Big hot wiener
on a bun. But you are in the billions of dollars being generated yearly by those baseball programs. So I'm not listening to the, oh my God, I can't believe the money's there. I mean, it is there. I'm sorry, and if that guy don't get it, the next guy will.
But not every.
Oh no, not every franchise has
what
it.
The other one has. I mean, you take Cincinnati. I think they don't like ownership there, and I don't think he's the wealthiest person in the world as when it comes to being an owner.
I think we probably need to talk about this for just a second.
We got.
In 1 week, you'll be able to buy stock in the Atlanta Braves.
Well, I heard that Liberty Media was going to make the Braves a separate entity altogether.
Starting July 19th, the Atlanta Braves become a publicly traded company on NASDAQ.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's going to go up and down like a yo-yo based on good year, bad year.
That is interesting.
You know, but I also saw this last year that media company had the Braves for sale if somebody come up with X number of dollars. And they talked about the profits that they have made since they've had them.
Talk about how many World Series they cost us over the years because of not being willing to spend the money.
They're still on the low end of that, Rusty. They still won't do what that Mets guy's doing.
Oh, no.
They still won't do what Steinbrenner did. They won't throw money out at anybody.
Well, I think about back in the day, Ted Turner, in one of the last years when he's still on the Braves, forked out a mint and a couple of players to bring in Mark Teixeira for the second half of a baseball season, and then didn't even have a prayer assigning the guy.
We wanted him. We wanted him to stay. And we thought because he was a Georgia boy.
Thought he was a Georgia Tech kid that we'd get him, but you know, but can anybody ever say that Turner wouldn't do whatever was needed to do when he was the owner?
When Teixeira hit the Braves lineup, he meant a lot to him.
Oh Lord, yeah, he did.
He became the best player on the team practically at that moment.
And that was the problem there was and what the Braves were always guilty of was we just held on to some of those personalities a little bit too late. You know, some of them should have been let go down the trail a few years before they were. And then other ones we let walk down the trail that we shouldn't have never got rid of. Maddox should have retired a Brave. Glavine should have retired a Brave. You know, we can sit here and split hairs about how poorly ran the Braves have been over the years.
When Bob Horner was trying to get them over the and they held their ground, he went to Japan, got paid whatever he wanted to get paid. But he was asking for money, and if you remember back in those days, Bob Horner wouldn't even halftime play because he was hurt.
Yep, that's what I remember.
You know, he wouldn't stay in shape, and so the Braves were struggling back then. They needed his production to be there, but the kind of money he was asking for, he hadn't warranted it.
You know, I remember.
And I think that Pendleton followed him, and if I'm not, or shortly after that.
No, Pendleton didn't come along till Oberkfell was there at the time and played a couple of years. Pendleton didn't come along until.
And Pendleton was a huge upgrade.
Yeah, oh God, yeah, but they didn't bring him along until what, like 1989, 90, somewhere in that range is when they got him because he won the MVP in '91. I look at it, man.
You know Bob Horner's first round pick?
Oh yeah,
first overall.
Oh yeah, I know a guy from Rossville, Georgia, that was in the Braves, that was down there at the open tryouts when Bob Horner had come in as the draft pick. A guy from here that played at Rossville High School was down there with him at the same time. He never had anything nice to say about him. I guarantee if I called him up right now, he'd tell you that he's a damn crybaby.
I think he played for Arizona State, if I remember.
I just remember as a kid, and I was like Scott. I mean, I'd come home from school in the afternoons and watch the Cubs game and then watch the Braves game.
Yeah.
And I mean, I bet I can't remember seeing Bob Horner play.
He was never.
It didn't seem like he. I mean, once a week, if you even got him. I mean, but look how many dumb moves they made back then. Hell, they paid Bruce Sutter for years. I think they're still paying him. No, seriously. I mean, I literally think they're still paying him. It's a minuscule amount, but I think they're still paying him money at this time.
I'm not going to knock any of these athletes that have done that to their contract because it's kind of tragic to see when some of these guys. I tell you, some of these guys that should have learned that were boxers.
Oh yeah,
making the kind of money that they made, and then they don't know where it's at.
Yeah, or they know they shouldn't be out there, but they've.
And some of them went long in their careers just to get a paycheck. Scott.
Way too long in their careers.
Way too long.
But you can say that about every sport too. Very few people get out when they need to. Yeah, it's like Jerry Seinfeld said when they were trying to talk him into doing a 10th season. They were talking about, have you seen the ratings? They've gone up every single year. They're in season 9, and they're way, way high. They're better than anything on TV. He said, don't you want to see how high the number can go? He's like, no, because the only way to find out is when it starts going down.
Inevitably, that's what's going to take place.
He said, show business, you get out and keep them wanting more.
Yeah, so
hooray to Jerry.
So this is
He's still doing all right for himself.
This is Bruce Suter's last contract. It had the deal was a 6-year deal with the Atlanta Braves, $9.1 million. That was 1984. The pact provided $4.8 million in deferred money that would pay at 13% interest for a 36-year period. Once his it says 36-year period. Once it expired in 1990.
2020?
Suter started receiving an annual stipend of $1.3 million per year, pushing its total value to almost $50 million, making it one of the biggest in baseball history. So initially he signed for $9.6 million, and he made almost $50 million off that contract.
He might have been the best closer in the game when he came over.
And then he got hurt when he got to Atlanta.
I think he probably was.
Oh, when he played, he was lights out when he played for the Cardinals.
Yeah.
I mean, when they played the Braves that year in the NLCS, he shut the Braves down all 3 games.
Goose Gossett kind of early in the decade, then Bruce Suter, and then kind of maybe Eckersley and Lee Smith at the end. But that middle part of the decade, Bruce Suter was it. Man.
Well, you had some...
He was the roll age relief man of the year.
That's right. Golly, the roll age relief man. Thought about that in a million years.
You didn't mention Raleigh Fingers.
Raleigh Fingers.
He was more in kind of the.
He was a setup guy, yeah.
Because
he's a closer.
He was on those Oakland teams when they won it all.
He was further back than.
I wish they'd bring back This Week in Baseball.
And if I'm not mistaken, Eckersley was a starter.
Or the baseball.
Well, I mean,
Eckersley was a starter and then
became a reliever. Well, you remember he was part of a.
I think Dennis Martinez did the same.
He was part of a 3-way no hitter. Eck was, and when he was in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you just said
late '80s. Eckersley was basically untouchable.
Had that weird little leg kick where he took the ball out of his glove and had that little three-quarter delivery.
But he couldn't get a guy to come off the bench.
Oh God,
that was hobbling to the plate. He couldn't get him.
The only at bat the guy had in the entire World Series was a home run.
He just
game
dropped
1.
The bat where the ball was.
I was such a fan of those A's teams. I'm still sick to my stomach every time I see that highlight. It's like, good God.
Well, and we can say this too. Obviously, the Raiders left, and now the Athletics are leaving. And Raiders as well as Athletics had such a successful history about them. Not lately, a long time ago, but what do you think it is about that town that says, you know what, the hell with y'all, we'll let you leave?
Ownership.
We'll let you leave.
No, I think.
Well, it was all about that stadium that the city wouldn't invest in.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it's the blame, part of it's the city, and they keep saying, "Well, we had a deal in place. We had a deal in place." Of course, the owner has to agree to it or whatever. I think they're both to blame.
And I guess you could look at Vegas as being a more exciting place to be at than Oakland.
Of course.
And I don't know that Vegas is so much of the 40 years ago where just tourism come in. I think a lot of people live there too now.
Oh yeah, it's one of the fastest growing cities in the country. But I put some of the blame on ownership. I put some of the blame on the city council out there because. How you ever gonna lure a football or baseball program back? They drug their feet here and there. I mean, if they really wanted to get it done, they would have got it done.
They'll never lure one back because based on what you just did.
And the Raiders left twice.
Yeah, they did.
But I don't know though if once that A's franchise leaves Oakland, that ownership group goes with them. That doesn't mean that another ownership group that's better at business couldn't come in there, bring another expansion franchise back.
It is a pretty old, dilapidated.
The stadium's terrible, but But I also think that you had management in two teams right there those were two of the most piss poor managed teams in the history of sports.
Go back to the 70s, they were world champs. You go back to what were they?
They
80s?
won them in the late 80s, and that was it.
They went to 3 World Series in a row in the late 80s.
Yeah,
and
hadn't been much around in a while.
They sniffed it a couple times, and then
they made some playoffs a few times.
Well,
when they could get young talent. Because think about all the young talent that went through there.
So much. Well,
Giambi, Hudson,
Braves
Zito.
got 2 of them right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
2 of the better ball players on the Braves, which were all-stars,
yeah, Matt
2 years
Olson
ago played for them.
Yep.
Well, once the A's get relocated, if it is Las Vegas, it kind of looks like it is, but there's still a lot of I's to be crossed and T's to be dotted. And then once Tampa gets their stadium figured out, if they're going to get a new stadium,
you think they stay there? I think it's in their best interest to leave. I think it's in best interest that Miami leave, but where are they going?
Yeah, they're going to keep one franchise in Miami. Well, here's the thing: they thought, well, all these old people miss baseball, and we're going to put a franchise in Miami. Old people don't want to be outside when it's 90 degrees outside.
They can't sit out in the sun.
Yeah, I mean that was kind of
you can go watch basketball.
Leave spring training.
You can go watch hockey
in Florida. Now Arizona's done fairly well. But it's never and look.
Arizona has a covered stadium.
The Marlins have 2 World Series championships, and they still don't draw all that. Although that team is starting to finally turn around a little bit. But once they get Oakland figured out and they get Tampa resolved, however they're going to resolve, they're going to add a couple expansion franchises. Now, if they move Tampa to one of these expansion franchises, they're probably going to get 2 more. Everybody says Nashville is probably the front runner for one of them.
Nashville's a no-brainer.
I think Nashville would be
where
supportive.
Where else do you put them? I've heard Charlotte. I've heard Salt Lake City. I've heard Portland. Indianapolis has been thrown around.
Salt Lake City. That would give you that. I would give you another West Coast team. I mean,
and Salt Lake City already has a plan to get a stadium without public funds.
Yeah, but think about it like this: even when the Utah Jazz suck, they sell out every game.
Yeah. They would bridge that gap.
Yeah, I mean, people support
California
stuff in that area. I mean, I think Salt Lake City and I think or Utah. Just it could be the Utah whatever.
Yeah, Salt Lake City.
I think there, and I think Nashville's a no-brainer. Nashville is a no-brainer. That's a slam dunk right there.
Then, of course, you're looking at realigning all of baseball, and perhaps even doing away with the American League and the National League.
Oh, you're not going
to. No, I mean Jim Bowden has already come out with something that baseball is kind of
like 4 super division kind of things. Or
well, he had it like 6 divisions of 5 or something like that, or if they add 2, it'd be like 8 divisions of 4.
Yeah. So give you 32 teams. Yeah.
Well, we said this many years ago back on Stuff on Sports, and for me, Charlotte and Nashville were just 2 no-brainers that they had already showed they could support professional sports in, and they both were growing towns pretty much. But I'm like you, Scott. Tampa doesn't need to stay there. I don't care if they make them a nice stadium; it doesn't need to stay there.
I mean, they got the 2 best teams in baseball came in there last week for a series.
And the Braves were there,
and they didn't even open up the top part of the stadium. The seats, they blocked all them off, so there's only the bottom. There's only like 27,000 people there.
Well,
like you can't support. You got the best team in the American League, and you can't come out to watch them play the best team in the National League.
Folks out there, if you can't, you hadn't figured it out by now, we like baseball, and we like to talk about baseball. So you probably gonna hear quite a bit more as we make our way to the end of summer. But obviously, high school sports are starting up. Scott's been out to some 7-on-7s and everything. We're getting all that stuff cranked up.
And as far as we know right now, unless something drastic
go
changes,
ahead and make the announcement.
New Ringgold head coach Austin Crisp will be
joining us.
With us.
Yeah, joining us next week. Yep.
Well,
folks, we appreciate you joining in with us this afternoon. We hope you enjoyed listening as much as we enjoyed talking, and we will catch you guys same time next week.